The House of Mystery presents Inside Writing, the radio show where authors discuss their writing process in all genres.
Welcome back into the House of Mystery, and of course I'm Al Warren, and on the other side of the country we've got Mr. Rose Martini back.
The man of 1,000 names.
Yeah, that's right. Well, when you're running from the law, you got to keep it, real.
That's true. I'm on the lam.
You're on the lam, and you got to keep. You never want them to find you. Right?
No.
I mean,
exactly. I'm in hiding.
Yeah. So this is great. I just, of course, you've seen that bite we're supposed to talk about with the band of the lead singer urinating on one of her audience members. And I was thinking, geez, when you went to the Monkees and you're into Run DMC and all this stuff, you are missing the best concerts.
I don't know what's happened.
I'm like,
I'm out of the loop.
Yeah, get your Give your head a shake, man. What are you doing?
I know.
Man, this world's
Crazy.
going crazy. You know, I'm going to keep hidden for the rest of my life. And anyway, so now we've got another musician on.
Yes.
I think he's quite a bit better than what this band is. I'm not even saying their name. And he's written a new book as well. And we're going to talk to him about the book and his life and everything like that. Now, the book is called Minor Assassin. Sounds like your kind of book. And now the author is here. His name is Jackiem Joyner. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for inviting me, Alan. Quite a funny opening. So people are peeing on people. Okay. That's a new one. Okay. I mean, I don't do that.
Oh, you see, now this is the way of selling out a show. Right?
So insane.
Well, you know, the thing is, the bottom line on that one, I have to say, is the song that they're doing is just horrible. They're redoing old metal songs and hard rock songs to brass and woodwind, and she sings over it, and it just sounds awful. It sounds like a mess, you know. And I'm thinking, so you do something to attract the whole country to you, and everyone's going to look or hear it, and they're going to hear this song and think, "Oh my God, this is awful." You know, if you're going to do that, you better have a good product, you know.
Yeah. Just because you pee on your audience doesn't necessarily mean they're going to like the music. No.
No, I mean, hopefully for the guy, the pee was better. I don't know.
Yeah.
If you're into that, I don't know. It seems rather kind of an iffy thing to do too, with the pandemic and everything going on. And
my goodness,
you know, people do not. They're always surprising me. I'm never shocked anymore at this. By the time I'm almost 60, and it's almost, thank God, it's almost over. Well, so you're a young, bright. You got it all. You know, you're a musician. You've done really well. You've written hit songs. You do really well touring, and now you're going into writing, or I guess it's your second book. But so. Wow, so you have a lot of talent. You've got it all. Looks, charms, music, writing.
Well,
what are you doing on this show? No, just...
Somewhere someone's supposed to be paying me. I'm not sure, but
yeah.
We can talk about
The check is in the mail.
Yeah, check's in the mail. You know, Dave will send it to you as soon as he gets near a computer.
All right, yeah. Yes. I accept the cold hard cash and all kinds of Zelle, PayPal, all of it. You know, just send it on this way.
Well, you know, being such okay, so you're successful at being a musician. So, what made you go into writing something like Minor Assassin? Like that's a I don't know. I don't want to say a risk, but it is sort of something that's completely different.
You know, I think when it comes to music, because I'm a songwriter and I write the majority of all of my music, and most of the hit songs that have been playing on the radio that people hear on Sirius XM are original songs that I write. But I think there came a time when I just wanted to use more of my imagination. I don't know if I have ADD or whatever you want to call it. But I just wanted to find another outlet because, you know, I'm a big fan of movies and stories and plots and things like that ever since I was a young kid. I never thought I'd write an entire book. In fact, my first novel, which is Zaria, that was my first book, and that came out 2015, I believe it was. I started writing that while on tour. You know, I toured Russia, and 5 weeks we were there, just touring the whole country by train. And there was these times where it's like before sound check, where you're just, you know, they haven't even built a stage, and you're there. You got to wait an hour or 2 hours, and I'm like, I just started writing stuff, you know, on my computer. And I guess I kept writing stuff. And then next thing you know, I'm like, let's make something of this stuff, right? So, and I think it took about 2 years to finish it. And I had no idea how to put plots together, characters, none of that stuff. I was just letting my mind just go, really. Right. And the next thing you know, I'm like, wow, I'm kind of putting something together. And I had someone that I hired who is really good at editing and writing and take a look at the gibberish and said, we can, I think you should really work on making this a story. So I kept at it, wrote it again, and started to understand how characters work and things like that. In the end of which is Zarya, which is the first book, which is a science fiction, teenage science. I call it teen science fiction. Teenage girl saves the world on another planet with flying drones and skyscrapers and aliens, stuff like that.
But you were playing in Russia. Wow, that's be quite the experience to be performing in Russia. I hear they like people peeing on people there. Anyway.
It would be really cold. I mean, I'll tell you one thing. It was very cold there. Gosh, it was the coldest I've ever been. I mean, if you haven't experienced cold until you go to Russia, I mean, it's something else. And it seems like they continue to move and work and operate in this freezing weather, including taking off in a blizzard. I mean, we took off in a blizzard from Moscow. I was like, there's no way we're flying in this. And they strap up. Yes, you are flying in this. So, just a big experience.
They probably get used to it,
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, but all that stuff helped, I think, with writing. I mean, I said something about being in a strange place with strange language that just, I don't know, fuels your imagination, touring, there's a lot of waiting when you're touring, So I guess I did have a lot of time when I toured Russia. We went down and we toured Japan and a couple other places. So that's when I started writing, but I had been touring many years before I became an author. More recently, my most recent book, which is different than the first book. This first book is more of a PG-13 kind of a story. It's not, you're shooting laser beams and instead of real bullets, like in Minor Assassin, right? So it's a different feel. Minor Assassin is where a teenage, actually it's a young boy who, and I don't want to give away the story too much, but through tragedy, he's whipped off to Japan because there was a home invasion and they killed his parents right in front of him. He's hiding in a pantry at 8 years old. Luckily, he stays in a pantry and doesn't leave. Turns out his dad worked for some really rich Asians, and some bad things happen. He gets whipped off to Japan. His sister gets kidnapped. She stays in Las Vegas. He goes to Japan, learns the language, learns how to fight, learns how to kill, comes back to Las Vegas, and he wants to find his sister. He wants to kill those bad dudes who hurt his family, and he's only 15 years old. So the crazy thing is he's doing the job that the detectives are supposed to be doing in Las Vegas, and the detectives are like, who's killing off all these bad dudes? So it turns out it's little John looking for his sister, and he's hell bent on revenge, really. So so that's, in a nutshell, that's Minor Assassin.
Well, you read about martial arts. I'm wondering, are you drawing from experience in martial arts, or is it just imagination? I ask because I've done martial arts for a long time, and that tends to end up in my fiction as well.
I've always had a fascination. I never really took martial arts as far as I wanted to. I did do Goju a little while, while high school, and I did have my teacher, another teacher who was excellent at Aikido, and it was more personal training stuff, but nothing that went to, black belt, silver belt, first dan, second dan, none of those things. I just had a fascination for fighting. I love Bruce Lee, Jet Li, Jackie Chan.
Oh, great stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, but I wanted to put, a Jet Li and a young African-American boy, Minor Assassin, who's just angry, really. And the crazy thing about the story is, it's a human trafficking network of Asians that are in Las Vegas that his father was actually rescuing a lot of the girls and a lot of the kids from the human trafficking network. Turns out his father rescued the wrong person. That's why they came to the house and took him in out, so his son didn't really know about what was going on. All he knew was he watched his parents get killed. But in Japan, he learns the language. The people that his father worked for were good. Well, there's two factions. There's the bad faction. These are the human traffickers, and then there's another Asian faction that's actually trying to stop the bad faction. His father worked for the good faction. So, but they were the ones who took John in to Japan and taught him everything that he could learn, and to help them to go back to Vegas to get his revenge and find his sister before she gets sold off. So it's more of a real story than Zarya, which is more on another planet, and a lot of the characters have tails and ears, and it's so it's different feel. For some reason, I keep finding myself writing with the teenager in mind, which I'm not sure what that's about.
Well, we won't talk about that on the air. So. It's interesting, but writing when you're in a foreign place like Russia. I mean, and I don't know about you, but anytime I'm going around city to city, I like writing that way because it's a way you feel like. You're kind of alone, even though there's like a million people around you, Mm-hmm. And I think that creates some sort of atmosphere where you can be into yourself and express yourself in writing, for instance, or maybe even music that you couldn't when you're at home.
Yeah. Yes. I found that really my creative mind tends to open up when I am in a strange place. Like I said, Russia, I don't speak Russian. So you are definitely a stranger there, but it does put you in this zone where you can really dig deep into yourself and come up with things that you wouldn't at home. So I totally agree with that. But even musically, because I found that writing songs, and it kind of feels the same in a sense that you're just kind of putting down what's in your head first, and then after a while you start to try to make sense of what you put down, and then you start to think, well, okay, what's this going to sound like for someone who hears it for the very first time, and will it make sense to the listener, and I kind of feel the same way when it comes to writing, when they read this first chapter, they don't know anything about the book, so is it going to catch their attention? Is it going to make sense, So it's really felt the same. I kind of drew from my experience as a songwriter and kind of used the same energy in writing stories. So it's kind of weird. It felt the same.
Well, I wonder, because as a songwriter or a musician, when you put music out there, you're kind of sharing some of your own soul in a way. You're expressing some sort of an emotion or feelings or something, and you're sharing it with the world. And I think that with the book, you kind of have to do the same when you're writing a story. Does that sort of ever freak you out a little, as I guess we say, or kind of, because the world's so social media, like you do something and everyone's tweeting about it. Like it's so, you're exposed to so many more people now.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting because before I put out my first novel, I had already put out a couple of albums, so I kind of got used to just really sharing my soul to the audience. But when the book came, when I was done with the book and I had the book in my hand and everything was done, it was a bit there was a little hesitation to press the publish button. Or, because it's like, I wonder what people are going to think. Are they going to like it? Are they going to accept it? Or did I share too much? So it's so amazing that even at the very end, when you have your entire book in your hand, that real hesitant to kind of put it out there, even though for me, I'm used to, opening myself up to criticism, because I feel like that's how you grow as an artist. And, as a writer, that's how you're going to grow as a writer, let people read it and, and chew it out. It's your soul. But, if you can manage to, I feel like if you can manage to handle that, that criticism, and some is good, some is bad. People are not going to like it. It's going to be good for some people. People are going to think it's horrible, and just maintaining your drive to write, your passion to write, in spite of all that. I think that's true art, in my opinion.
Well, you mentioned that being a musician and writing, it's kind of like the same energy, and I was just wondering if you feel that your musicianship has helped you with maybe like the rhythm of language when you're writing.
I think my experience as a writer has helped me, as a songwriter, has helped me more with structure, because I think had I not put out music, I probably wouldn't be thinking about too much organizing all of this stuff into an actual story, because the thing is with music and songs, I've got to organize 10 songs into one collection, which is an album, and I want people to feel something from the collection of songs that I'm giving them. So when it comes to writing stories, I think that by doing that and having that experience, I was able to go back and really comb through and edge out the story to make it make sense to someone who's reading it for the first time, rather than just going crazy with my imagination, which is what I do, like in the first and second draft. It's just write whatever. But now it's like, let's turn this into a story. Let's make it make sense, So I feel like it's the same energy, yeah.
when you write a song, I would think that there's something you want to share with someone. You want someone that listens to it to get something from it. And do you have the same kind of thing with the book you write? Is there something you're hoping people get? Like if I was to buy Minor Assassin, read it, other than the top line story, is there some sort of thing you're trying to get across to me, or is it...
Some interesting things I wrote in Minor Assassin did have some personal, like for instance, he's a young African American boy in Japan. No one looks like him, and he doesn't speak the language. So there's all of these different weird experiences that he have where he's out of place. He does something that's out of place. Maybe he goes into a shrine he's not supposed to, or he's playing a certain kind of a way, and that's just not custom, in that country. And for me, having toured and traveled all over the world, I had to learn some hard lessons about customs in many different countries, and I kind of felt like I was just naturally relaying that into John's character, albeit from a point of view of a boy, who wants to know, where can he get his little video games, and just little stuff that would be important to him at the time, and because he really grows up, in Japan real quickly, much faster than had he just been in America, because no one's there except for him. There's another young lady named June who knows his father, but still, even though she's a close friend, she's from China, and it's just just a different, and I felt that way before, traveling to countries. So I think I do, even if I'm not planning on doing that in my writing.
So your main character, John, where did you get him from? Like, where does that character come from when you're sitting down and writing? Did you ever wonder?
That's a really good question, because, it's crazy because, John, in the beginning, of the story, it's a really happy life that he lives in, and they have a very nice home. They're not worried about money. He's kind of a techie, he knows how to use all types of computer devices, and decking out his dad's car with other little devices and things like that. So he's a smart little kid. I don't know where, because I can't say I was that smart with techie stuff when I was 8. That came from, but I wanted him to have a little edge, a little nerdy little boy he was, sort of, and he had a sister named Jayla, and she was older, and he didn't like that she would get a lot of attention for certain things or whatever. But it just becomes so real, when she's taken away and the family's taken away, to someone that's 8 years old, what do you do with that, right? And it was the best thing that he did for his entire life was stay in the pantry when the Asians were in the and the gangsters were in the house, and not move, crying to his own silence, and that's the only thing that saved his life. But I really can't think where I got this character from, honestly.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people say with fiction writers that when you create a character like that, you end up putting a lot of yourself into that character too. So a lot of the mannerisms or thoughts, or you're developing this character in the story, and the things that he decides to do or not to do comes from you in a way. So
yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if I would have. Well, maybe I would be. I mean, he becomes really brutal, and that's why the story is more for adults. I'm not sure if I'm as brutal as I wrote him to be, but I gave him the freedom to. He's only killing bad dudes, so.
So how long have you had this feeling that you wanted to kill a lot of bad dudes?
Oh man, hey, it's better to feel it than to do it. I felt like I wanted to kill my brother sometimes. So I mean, right? But I don't. So yeah. There's that.
When you write John or any of your characters, can you hear them in your head? Do you have an inner monologue? I'm also curious if that's how you write music. If you hear the lyrics and the music in your head before you put it down.
I will say that it's always great if you can hear the music in your head before you start putting it down, because now you have a blueprint or something to work with. A lot of times when I'm pressed, when I was signed to a major label, and I'm pressed with deadlines to get music done, you have to sit there and come up with something. It's like, well, I don't have anything right now to come up with, So, but then there are these times where a song or a melody will just kind of pop in your head and be like, wow, I can really feel that. So, and then you start, you just try to, like what I do is I use an audio memos recorder just to like sing the melody just a little bit, because I'll forget it. It's like it comes to you. You've got 30 seconds to put it down and it's gone, So when it comes to writing, I think that at least for these the first two novels, so for Zarya and for Minor Assassin, I had a lot of the story. Well, certainly for Minor Assassin, I had the idea of a lot of the story in my head, because I'm actually going to continue Minor Assassin into a series of teenage assassins around the world. Basically, they're killing bad people around the world, but there's different ones, So I'm kind of expanded. That's kind of been in my head. And I barely started writing some of that too, because while John is actually in Japan, he meets a kid from Germany who's there, and then another kid from Kenya, and then another kid from England, and it seems like the organization that his father was working for were creating a network of some sort to take down criminals around the world. So I'm planning on expanding that, and that's kind of been in my head a little bit. So I would say to make this very long answer that I just gave you short, yes. I could have said.
Oh, that's all right. We can cut it. No, just now. When you're doing this, I wonder. When you were younger, did you ever have an issue telling your family that you wanted to be a musician?
I actually never thought I would be a musician, when I was younger. It never occurred to me, honestly. I mean, my first experience with music, of course, I used to dance to Michael Jackson when I was 8 and 7, because I love Michael Jackson. But I didn't think that I'd be doing anything serious. But there was when I was 11, I remember my mother taking me to this church where they had this really amazing band and singers that were just singing, just great singers, and the band really was the band that really caught my attention though at church. I had never seen people play like that or perform like that, so it made me excited to want to be a part of it. The first instrument that I started playing was the drums, although I'm known as a saxophone player. That was my first instrument because I was just fascinated by the guy who was playing the drums at church, and that's really where I started out. And my mother, she encouraged it, In fact, I didn't start playing saxophone, which is my prime instrument, until high school. And my mother, when I graduated middle school, when we went to high school, she first thing she said, to the administrators is, I want him in band, and, I said, what he plays, I said, well, he plays the drums, So I went to the band class, and, the music instructor said that they already have drummers, so if I want to be in a band, I got to play something else. Took me to a band closet and, let me choose an instrument. Turns out the saxophone looked the most expensive, and it looked like it was made of gold, and it looked challenging. So I said, show me how to play that.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. So now you're into the writing, and so you want to make this a series.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you sort of have this planned out in your mind? Do you sort of, like, even when you did Minor Assassins, it sort of sounds like you just sat there and wrote as it came, and no thought.
I would say I thought about it a little bit, not as much as I wrote, but as far as the series, I've probably been thinking about that now for more than a year, because the way that I want to write it is like I wrote John's story as an entire novel, and then I'm going to write another teenager story from the point of view in another country like Mexico or something like that. Like there's a young girl in Mexico, and I'm going to write her story, but it'll be a short story, but she's a part of the same organization. And then eventually everyone will come together in some sort. So that's kind of what I've been building in my head.
Oh, got a plan here. Okay.
I just need time. All I need is I get more time. If I can get a couple of more hours, maybe I need like 28, 29 hours in a day.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get a lot more.
Well, we'd all like that, but I don't think it's going to happen, you know. Well, that's really cool. That's really cool. What's your biggest piece of advice for someone that's, you know, wants to be a musician or a writer, maybe? What would you say to someone like that?
Start writing. I mean, if, you know, it's the first step is, you know, start playing. I mean, you know, you got to decide, you know, if you want to be a musician, you know, if you can get yourself a guitar or something like that, that'd be great. Find artists that inspire you, that you want to hear play, you know, that you listen to. And if you can get inspired by another artist that you really love and imagine their song coming through you, you know, that's where you really find that passion, is through someone that you look up to. And, you know, when it comes to writing, I mean, some people some people write who don't read a lot. Some people write who do read a lot. Some people have their favorite authors and stuff like that, you know. So maybe you can try out your own story. Just start writing, really. And, you know, the thing is, a lot of people say, you know, I can't write, or, you know, I never experienced with writing. But, you know, you get better writing by writing.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That's with anything. So you have obviously people you look up to music-wise and that influence you or have. And did you have any writers that kind of rubbed off on you any?
You know, David Baldacci, I love his stories of which is more real world CIA, FBI kind of stuff, you know. I picked up a lot of stuff when I did Minor Assassin from some of his books. I love Mary Lou. Some of her fiction stories, and which also deal with like a teenage kind of a thing too, with a touch of fantasy, but not too much. You know, James Patterson. There are many different writers that I look up to. It's interesting that sometimes they have something different. You know, it seems like David Baldacci continues to write, you know, in a certain genre. Which is like, you know, the CIA murders, you know, and stuff like that. And, you know, which is a different, you know, for me, I can't say that I've nailed down my genre yet. I do know that I like dealing with teenagers. I do know that I like dealing with fiction. I do like, you know, flying cars and drones and you know, space stuff, but then I also like real world stuff too. So we'll see where it all leads me. I got a new series out called Time Lab that I just put out. It's a short series. And I got the first one came out earlier this summer. And Time Lab is a story where a scientist from the past, 2,000 years ago, is building a time machine, and there's a scientist from current day who's a student in college, who's also into physics, is going to be working with someone from the past, but he doesn't know it yet. And they, you know, it's just interesting how that story is more of a real world, but it's still science fiction because you can't actually build a time machine.
At least that you know of.
At least that I know. That's true, right? Maybe.
You never know. Well, it's all very interesting. You sound like a very creative person, so that's you got a lot to get out there, and so that's really cool. Do you find that the way the world, especially let's say the U.S. in the last 4 or 5 years has been, including pandemic and all of the controversy going on, does it stress you out, and does that affect your music or even your writing?
You know, it used to, but, you know, now I think more recently, especially after the pandemic, I find that, you know, there's this solitude in art. You know, it's just when you're an artist or when you're being creative, everyone else is quarreling about all of these trivial things, and some of it's serious or whatnot, but I kind of feel like it's the music, it's the stories that bring us all together, really, you know, as a human race. You know, if I can't speak Japanese, but I can play a song, they can feel me, they can understand me in that aspect, you know?
Right. Right, and that's important, making connections everywhere you can, But I was just wondering because because if stressful things happen to artists, a lot of times some really good art comes from, their own hard experiences, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is, really. A lot of it is, for me, even each album had something to do with what was going on in my life during those times, there's an album that was mainly focused around when I reconnected with my father. Hadn't seen him since I was 7. So a lot of music on that, songs like Back Together Again or The Reunion, upbeat songs and stuff like that. And then, more recently I wrote an album called Touch, which is more of a seductive, sexy, lustful kind of record. So, yes, they're about your experiences. I would say for sure.
Well, there we go. You heard it here. So if someone was, which album would you recommend someone buy of yours if they've never heard of you before, which is hard to believe, but if they haven't, what would you say the one album to get, would be?
Wow, that's a hard one because, my biggest hit song is on my second album that came out in 2009. However, my Touch album has a bigger reflection of my personality, even more so than the second album. It's hard to say, which album. If I just had to and I couldn't, I would probably give him the album Touch. I would probably say that one, because that one kind of covers a lot of ground for me as an artist. I think.
Well, there we go. That sounds exciting. So, and now, how do you like people? Do you like to interact with fans or people that read your books or listen to your music? And if you do, how do you like to interact with them? Like, do you have a Facebook page or do you have a website?
I love interacting with fans, especially as a performing artist. Generally after every show, I'm doing a meet and greet. I'm signing CDs and different things like that. People can reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram, and they send a message. I respond to my messages. And when it comes to writing, same thing. I talk with authors. We butt heads or we talk about different ideas or how better to market our book or different things like that. So I'm very open. If people want to follow me, they can follow me at Jackiem Joyner. That's my tag pretty much everywhere. JACKIEMJOYNER. I did create a separate website for only my literature and for writing, joynerbookclub.com, which has, reviews and my books, obviously. And, joynerbookclub.com, you can connect with me there. But if you want to find out more about my music, just go to my website, jackiemjoyner.com.
Yeah, and we'll have that all up on the website so that listeners can get to it in one click. And
there you go.
Yeah, and I just wanted to ask you. I know this is like a really big question, and but just to encapsulate it, I see that you wrote a book on it. How did you get into the music business and become such a success?
It's interesting because I was living in. I'm from Virginia, and I moved to Los Angeles. I remember an artist telling me, I was saying, if I want to make it in the industry, what do I need to do? They said, well, you're going to wind up in New York City or Los Angeles. I already lived in New York and it was too cold. So I chose Los Angeles. And it's crazy. I produced a demo and I was sending out my demo to just like a bunch of people and a bunch of like record companies, solicited material that they really weren't interested in. But I remember, one big time manager, getting my demo, and he actually called me. He said he wasn't interested at the time, but he said it was good. He said keep doing it, and send us something else. Maybe a year, 2 years later. But it reminded me when I was in high school when I was playing for JV and I wanted to be on varsity. And the crazy thing is just because you didn't make varsity doesn't necessarily mean you can't make varsity next year. So what I took that mindset and wrote an entire album called Baby Soul, which was my first national release, and I sent that album complete to to the manager. And then from there, he got me a record deal. I think my last job was in 2006. I was working at Target warehouse. And, I actually got fired from there. The very next day, that's when I was meeting with the big time manager. He had the album. He said, let's remix it. Let's remaster it. Let's get this famous artist on it. Let's get this other famous artist on it. And then let's put it out. And honestly, have I not stuck to my guns and just said, okay, it's okay. Turn me down. I came back a year later with something that he really enjoyed. So I think that was kind of the moment when it happened for me, From there, everything, I started performing with, George Duke, Marcus Miller, Ronnie Laws, Gene Carn, Angela Bofield, and I was just performing with all of these big-time artists, and I'm just a young guy, I'm like 27 years old. Playing with these big time artists. I was starstruck everywhere, even though I was also performing. I think another artist said, "You're also one of the performers. Don't forget that."
That's great. I mean, there you go. From Target to Lady Gaga. Here we go. Wow. It's certainly been a pleasure having you on. Hope you keep doing well, and your book sounds fascinating. We'll have that up on our website, of course. And, wow. So, our guest today, we're talking to him about his new book, Minor Assassin. And it's been a great conversation also about his music. So, Jackiem Joyner, thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's been fun. Good talking with you guys. And by the way, I will not be peeing on anyone from stage.
Oh, well then.
You can count. Because you guys told me with that girl who, I don't know who it was, but geez, that's still ringing in my head. I can't believe someone actually did that.
Yeah. Well, I would have went to your concert, but now I don't know.
tired of wasting time trying to decide what to watch on your streaming service? Go to our website and look for the Martino movie reviews.
You just reviewed that that movie, didn't you?
Red Notice. I have a hard time remembering the name, but yeah, Red Notice.
Yeah, that's kind of for some reason the name doesn't stick to me either, but we watched it by accident and it was okay.
It's okay. That's basically what it is. It's not extremely funny.
No.
It's Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds.
Right. And that's very Canadian, you know. Do you know his cynical, that attitude? Can't you find any similarity with me? He's so much, this is like how half the country is just like that. Like a lot of his.
Have to put you in a Deadpool suit.
Well, it'd be pretty bad looking. It wouldn't look like his. He's all buff, but that kind of, I don't know, cynical, smart-ass attitude is very Canadian. It's a lot of what he does and says just comes natural. That's just how I am too. I have the same sort of thing as him. But anyway, so the movie was okay.
He seems to play every character now the same with that same cynical comedy approach.
Yeah. Well, he's just being himself.
Yeah.
He's being Canadian.
He's being Canadian.
He is being so Canadian. That's so Canadian to like make fun of everything. But
Dwayne Johnson is Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah. I could take or leave Mr. Dwayne, The Rock. Yeah, I could take or leave him. He's just kind of like he's like the Arnold Schwarzenegger of the modern time, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could take him or leave him. It's not a big deal. But but the movie was okay. I mean, you can sure tell
watchable.
Well, yeah, and that's mainly because of the production.
Yeah. Yeah, it was slick.
Yeah, but they know how to do that. It's amazing when you've got money behind something, how you can make it a better movie than a lot of the ones that are out there that are, you can tell, aren't made that good, and they don't really have the acting people in there that could put on that sort of show,
Mm-hmm.
So it was okay. And it looks like there'll be more than one.
Yeah, they did leave it open for a sequel. So people who liked it enough. I mean, I guess I'd watch the sequel.
Well, yeah. With all the stuff out there now, it's kind of one of those things that wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
But it's not an all too important movie, that's for sure. It's not.
No.
It's not something that you can't go without.
No. That's true.
To find out more about our show, guests, or to listen to past shows from our archive, please go to www.houseofmysteryradio.com.
The mission has been completed.
The end! By George, he's got it! It is the end! I'll see you.
If you're lying to me, I'll be back.
This has been a production of Something Weird Media.